And I'm being joined by Elizabeth Freund Larus, Senior Fellow, Atlantic Council. Good evening, delighted to have you with us.
Thank you.
So, we have lots to unpack. Let me start with William Lai becoming the new president of Taiwan. Do we expect a departure from policies of Tsai Ing-wen?
No, I expect a lot of continuity, and in fact, that is one of his, campaign platforms is continuity from the previous administration. Of course, they're both from the same party, the Democratic Progressive Party, so they have roughly the same platform. When William Lai was running, there was a lot more emphasis on domestic situations rather than cross-strait relations. Coming out of COVID, Taiwan's economy, needs a boost. There's very high youth unemployment there. Wages are low. Housing prices are sky high. So much of the campaign was around, those domestic issues. Regarding cross-strait relations, William Lai, as he indicated in his inaugural speech, is open to dialogue with China. However, China just will not, to date, agree to communicate with DPP because in its past, it had a pro-independence mentality. DPP for decades now has recognized that the population of Taiwan prefers status quo, that is, keeping the political situation the way it is.
But I actually have it in my notes because I was quite surprised, right, that they're not really for this complete independence. Why is that?
Well, they know that independence is unrealistic. Communist China, the PRC, has said that's a red line. Going back to the Chinese Civil War, when the Nationalist Party and its followers all fled to Taiwan, Mao had sworn to recover, Taiwan for the mainland, and that actually, no, I think he said liberate. Liberate was the term that he used, and each of China's leaders since that day has said that we will, they say, reunite Taiwan with China. And so they have never renounced the use of force. Of course, they say they would rather do it in a peaceful manner, but they are not ruling out the use of force. So, the government on Taiwan knows that the people of Taiwan are not seeking independence. If you look at poll data, there is a very, very small percentage of the Taiwan population that wants independence now. The idea is they don't want unification, they don't want independence. Leave things the way they are, and they will thrive, as they have for the last 40, 50, 60 years.
Right, but it seems that some politicians may not agree with that. Just to take a look at some of the quotes from Xi Jinping, he said that he is hoping, right, for reunification, and I believe he said surely will be reunited with Taiwan, and he even set the date 2049 as a target date. So do you think that this is just rhetoric, or is he serious?
Oh, I think he's serious. And I do think we need to take him at his word. We have found that when authoritarian leaders say something, we need to listen. We should not project onto him our views, our aspirations, our desire for peace. Of course, 2049 marks the 100th anniversary of the birth of the PRC, that is Communist China. Taiwan is still formally known as the ROC. Now, of course, Mao and his successors had all said they wanted to, they used the term reunite Taiwan with China, but they couldn't make good on it. Increasingly, under Xi Jinping, China has the ability, and not only has the desire and the intent, it now increasingly is closer to having the ability. Western analysts are still a bit skeptical, saying that's going to be a really, really hard charge to pull it off. But we would rather, avoid that nut if we can by a diplomacy, which then buys Taiwan time to build up its own defenses more, and honestly, for the United States to build up its military in case it needs to come to Taiwan's defense.
Right, this is what I was actually going to ask you. To what extent is the issue of Taiwan only about Taiwan, and to what extent it is entangled with other issues pertaining to the China-US relation? I remember that whole issue over Nancy Pelosi's visit in 2022, right? So it seems that there's more to it than just Taiwan.
You're right. This is a very large ball of wax. However, keep in mind that the United States has supported the Republic of China since the 1930s, when the Republic of China was fighting Japan that tried to occupy and that eventually occupied China. And then when that group of nationalists retreated to Taiwan, the United States continued to have a defensive type relationship with Taiwan. Now, over the years, of course, the United States has normalized relations with communist China. We have diplomatic relations with China, but we haven't left Taiwan out in the cold. Look at Congress. In the past 10 years, I can't even count the numbers of legislation, acts, laws, resolutions that are in favor of protecting Taiwan in some form, shape, or manner, and very critical of China. Taiwan is extremely important. Its location is extremely important for geopolitics. It's extremely important for the United States' presence in the Asia Pacific. The United States has been the dominant maritime power in the Asia Pacific since 1945. And Taiwan is a key player there. If China were to gain control of Taiwan, it would open up the Western Pacific, that entire region near Japan, Philippines, Guam. Look at a map, name that whole region. China would control that, and particularly maritime security would be changed. And honestly, the post-World War II regime of international laws, rules, regulation would be completely changed.
Right, it seems to also be in the interest of other countries, as you mentioned, right? Japan, for instance, for Taiwan to sort of maintain this status quo. But let me ask you about, one word which often, all the time appears when we talk about Taiwan, and I mean semiconductors. So how significant is that economic aspect to the policies that the U.S. has been pursuing towards Taiwan, but also China, right?
Yes. Taiwan, namely Taiwan Semiconductor, is vitally important to the IT supply chain worldwide. TSMC, fabricates the chips that are designed by Japan, South Korea, and the United States. They are the only foundry that can make such narrow chips. Competitors have tried, they are not there yet. And so, but Taiwan is, of course, not just important for TSMC. Taiwan's education system is amazing. The students there are fabulous at math, science, engineering. Honestly, Taiwan is a great place for friend shoring, and that is to have as a part of these vital, particularly high tech and AI supply chains. Taiwan is also a major economic power. Its population is significant, 24 million people. That's more than the population in a lot of European countries. A lot of people dismiss Taiwan as being small, but it has a sizable population. And Taiwan is, I believe it's like the US's 8th largest trading partner. So they do significant trade around the world in Europe, but as well as in Southeast Asia and throughout the Pacific and the Middle East.
Elizabeth, let me ask you one last short question. What China has been doing for the past 2 days, these war games around Taiwan, has made many people quite nervous. So do you think it's just sort of muscle flexing, or what kind of message they're trying to send?
But it's interesting. China, says this is in response to William Lai's inaugural address, where he actually very nicely asked China to stop, bullying Taiwan. He did say that Taiwan is not subordinate to China. However, look at the size of those military exercises and their joint force exercises, air, sea, right? And so that involves a lot of planning, months and months of planning. So regardless of what Lai said in his inaugural address, China was going to carry out these exercises. Now, remember, anything that comes out of China's leadership's mouth is not just for the international audience, but it's also for the domestic audience, right? Xi Jinping has gotten himself into a corner where he really has to be belligerent toward Taiwan, because that's what is expected now. On the one hand, he's going to appear to, extend an olive branch, but, the PRC, CCP, Chinese Communist Party, really hates the DPP in Taiwan. And so they can't really backtrack and use nice language, toward Taiwan. They have to prove that they're serious about Taiwan. And I do think that the United States and the rest of the world needs to understand that seriousness on the part of the PRC leadership.
Fascinating dynamics indeed. Elizabeth Freund Larus, Senior Fellow, Atlantic Council, thank you so much for being with us. Lovely having you on. Great insights.
You're welcome.